Neil was recently on the Colin and Samir podcast, none other than the head of YouTube himself. And while on there, he dropped a ton of golden nuggets for anyone who's looking to grow on YouTube this year. But since that interview is super long and we love you, what we've gone ahead and done is highlighted the key points, put them in this video, and I'm going to add on some commentary and advice on how to best approach this information as a YouTuber myself. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. The first thing you need to know about is when they start talking about shorts monetization on YouTube. And more specifically, if it will become realistic for a creator to be fully funded through monetization directly on their shorts. So making money simply for posting videos to YouTube and getting views in the shorts tab. So simply getting paid for the amount of views they get on their shorts directly from YouTube.
You know, we really still are in the very early days of that journey in terms of shorts and shorts monetization in particular. We are very invested in YouTube Shorts, but we are also a long form platform. We're also a live platform. We're a podcasting platform. And so living up to that mission of being truly multi-format, you are creative people. You have a way of connecting with your audience. My job is to provide you with the tool set, the stage, if you will, to do that in whatever format works for you. And so if you were telling me that you were 100% all in on shorts, I would say that's great. If you're telling me that you tried it and you're really 100% in on long form, that's great too. And so I just want to leave that meta message to all the creators out there that really, ultimately, it's got to be what works for them and their audience. On your question around monetization, it's really, really important to get that fit in terms of viewer value proposition, creator value proposition. On the short side, as you know, that is what we have been kind of maniacally focused on for the last few years. And then if we can get that right, which we feel like we have, you know, shorts, I think, has just surpassed 70 billion views a day. Back in January, that number was 50 billion. So it's continuing to grow at an incredibly rapid pace. Then the monetization pieces will come because the audience is there. And we know at Google and YouTube how to turn that into ad products that work for the viewers and therefore work for the advertisers. We are still in the early days of that journey. Since we've launched the rev share model, creator payouts have increased every single month. The trajectory is there. We still have ways to go, but that is going to come through the invention of ads products. You've already seen, I think, both on the direct response side and on the brand side of our advertiser products, a suite of products now that frankly, some of didn't even exist 12 months ago. So imagine what it's going to look like 12 months from now. So I think we're on that journey. The monetization is going to be there, both in terms of audience building and in monetization. It should be really about what the creators are looking to do, and then all those pieces should take care of themselves. So we're in it for the long haul. I'm very, very committed to it. It's the reason why we have a robust, scalable program around shorts monetization, as opposed to say like a fund or something like that, is because I think that my experience is that we know how we're going to get there.
This is obviously huge, and it's great to know that YouTube is thinking about this stuff too, because this kind of focus on creators is exactly what has made long form content so huge across YouTube. It's super realistic to build an income simply from your videos on YouTube. And it looks like that is the goal with shorts as well. And they're trying to build products to make that happen. Further on shorts, Colin and Samir then asked about how to approach monetization for shorts and how it's been done so far. And they asked the question of the creator fund versus a revenue share model and why the fund disappeared.
We really want to do the right thing from a long game perspective. And really the only answer to this is to continue to build that monetization capability really from the ground up. That means good advertiser facing products for brand use cases, for direct response use cases, making sure that they work from a user standpoint, that there's guardrails in terms of protecting the user experience. And ultimately that's what turns into creator revenue. That I think has to be like the focus of our teams. A fund was a way for us to sort of get things off the ground in the near term, but funds are not scalable. They really are limited to the purview of a handful of creators, but also they don't have the predictability of the YouTube Partner Program. The YouTube Partner Program is pretty transparent and it's broadly predictable, like the rev share concepts, the mechanics of the payouts, how it moves from an ad dollar ultimately to a creator dollar. Like that's pretty transparent. And so I would rather replicate what we built on the VOD side of things to shorts as opposed to like a fund, which I just don't think scales.
So I love this approach to making money from this kind of content. I think having a mutually beneficial relationship is huge, and that's YouTube's bread and butter. They focus on creators, and now with attention shifting towards short form content, they need to find answers there, and I'm pretty confident they will too. So the next bit was still about shorts, and so Colin and Samir really had some rapid growth last year from focusing on shorts, but they did notice some negative impact across their channel and their revenue based on those views. And so they tell Neil that directly and explain why they stopped focusing on shorts as much.
were heavily invested in shorts last year, and it brought us substantial growth. I think one of our fears was that some of that growth was subscribers that were interested in the content we're making on short form, and a subscriber that enjoys short form content versus a subscriber who will sit for a 2-hour podcast. I don't know that we want to carry that into this year. So we've reduced our short form output, but we've actually extended our episodes to be way longer. Now we're in the 2-hour plus range, and we're seeing our watch time go up, which is bumping our CPMs, and our AdSense revenue is at the highest it's ever been. On shorts though, what I will say from a feedback perspective, the most viewed Colin and Samir videos on YouTube are shorts that are made by other people. They're downloading the content, re-editing it, and uploading it. From a brand perspective, that's totally fine. Like Colin and I view it as the more our brand can get out there, the better. We're building a brand. But what I'm curious about in the future is like, how can the content ID system be enhanced so that that does become mutually beneficial for creators? Where the remix tool is unlikely, I think, at all times to be used, right? People are going to download and cut it in their own way. How can we track that? And can we have the option to say, hey, we'd actually like this short to link back to our video? Or, hey, maybe we want to share revenue because you're using our source material.
First of all, I think you guys know we do have community guidelines that are against taking people's content verbatim and just kind of uploading it, right? Like all that sort of thing. But I think what you're describing is like, it's sufficiently derivative in a way that could ultimately sort of work for you.
It's also, but I would say like the cultural guidelines between YouTube creators are different than the community guidelines, right?
Sure.
And there are comps even like the NBA with their playmakers. Like that's beneficial for them, for creators to have access to the footage. And there are creators at scale where it's kind of beneficial for us too, if people want to create with it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely something that Content ID has worked really well, I would argue, for our overall ecosystem around broadly that sort of use case that you're describing. So I will noodle on that.
I guess I'll ask this, but I'll suggest it more so. Is like, I think the way that it can work, because we found that Content ID does not pick up when someone adds their own subtitles even, right? When they tangibly change the visual of it, it's gonna not necessarily pick up. To me, it feels like our voices or something recognizable that potentially will need to be protected or need to enter into that system eventually would be the best way to track if someone's using our content.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're looking at all of those things, and I mean, some of that is we're looking at in the broader context of sort of how video, audio content is going to be transformed with, you know, all the AI tools, et cetera, that are out there as well. So I think generally, conceptually, we're thinking about all those things, but this is probably the way that we're going to figure it out, is like conversations with creators. I mean, it's kind of what I do. It's what our teams do. So this is the type of stuff that's going to go into the design. And whether it works exactly the way Content ID works in a very, very, very specific way, like kind of a match of a hashed kind of video, audio type file. In the world that you're describing, is it something conceptually that's similar, but a little bit of a different technology? Those are all the types of things that we're talking about. But I definitely get the use case that you're describing, both in sort of the mix scenario, but also in terms of like how technology is going to be able to, you know, kind of replicate some of these things as well.
The next key topic of the conversation was all about AI and YouTube's approach to AI tools and AI content itself. And they started off with the super general question of how AI will disrupt YouTube and overall content in general.
My thesis is that it's going to be a net positive, and probably a net really big positive for our creator ecosystem. In fact, like a lot of the things that we're talking about at Made on YouTube are actually about AI enhancing human creativity. At the end of the day, I firmly believe that there's never going to be a replacement of that, probably in the world, but certainly on YouTube. Like, people want to connect with you, your audience, you know, the stories that you tell, the nuanced ways that you actually explain the creator economy, et cetera. There is no replication for the fact that it's coming from you and coming from your expertise. Having said that, I do think that there's things that we will be able to do with AI that will enhance that profoundly. And it will show up in terms of creator tools, right? Change my background, enhance my video in this particular way, augment it with this video that I've been able to generate from, say, a text prompt. Like, all of that is like super, super magical and I get super excited about it, but it's not a replacement in any way for our creators. So that's why I'm bullish. Like, it's going to be a set of tools around the creator side. By the way, I also think it'll be a set of like really interesting tools and capabilities perhaps for your audience as well. Let's say I've watched, an hour and a half of it. Is there something that I could do to test the takeaways that come out of it? Can I digest that in a particular way that's interesting, that's useful to me? Like the classic example I give is like a kid watching an algebra video on YouTube. Could they quiz themselves afterwards, right? Like now with generative AI, you can do those types of things. So I think the positive are going to be a lot of those interesting use cases. There are challenges. You mentioned one of them around, things like creator rights and those. That's a very important sort of critical thing to think about. And then the other really big challenge that I think we will put a lot of resources to, and I think ultimately we can handle, but is going to be a challenge, which is around, responsibility and making sure that we're dealing with things like deep fakes and, potential misinformation, because the cost of that has become really low with generative AI.
The next logical question was about AI generated content. So content exclusively made or mostly made from the use of AI tools. And he kind of dodged around this question more than I would have liked, but here's his response.
It remains to be seen for sure, right? Like nobody knows the sort of the full picture there. The content that audiences want to see ultimately is sort of what rises to the top. And, our corpus is pretty enormous already. And there's a, distribution of, engagement with videos. They're not all sort of created equal. Now, you said something, I think there, the fear is maybe the audiences gravitate towards that. Yeah. That's certainly a possibility. I still come back to the fact that like what really, really makes YouTube what it is you guys. Like it's creators, and creators are like human beings, right? Like we watch live sports because we want to see the best humans compete against each other in that type of an environment. And it's like, that's a form of storytelling because you're connected, you're invested in those people that are there, as opposed to if they were like bots arguing, playing against each other. Whether it's music, whether it's creative content, like what you produce, what creators produce, like that human aspect of it, I just think is going to be like core to what YouTube is. I mean, I do think that one of the kind of our lifeblood and what really distinguishes us from any other platform out there, even in this multi-format world, even with things like trends and kind of the thing of the day, is like creators. Like what I love to hear, for example, is when, creators describe their experience with YouTube Shorts, is like they say things like, oh, when I'm on YouTube Shorts, I feel like my audience remembers who's on the other side of that camera. They remember my face. And as opposed to like, just zipping through kind of a feed sort of thing. And I would argue that is because our ethos is about creators, right? Like that's ultimately what it's about. And you're right. Like the meta kind of like sort of format du jour, et cetera, might change over time. And yes, creators have to adjust to those types of things, but it still comes back to the fact that it is ultimately about the creators.
So I do think this is inevitable. I think that they're going to have to figure out rules on how they want to approach this. And I think every platform will probably approach it differently, but these tools are getting close to a level of where it's almost indistinguishable, especially on a short form video, as to if it was made by AI or not. So this is going to be a key problem that YouTube is going to have to address, and at least they're thinking about it. And since so many people are using AI tools to kind of rip off other people's content and repurpose it as their own, I do think that there needs to be some improvements in terms of the content ID system and how stuff like that can get flagged or what the rules are. Do think there needs to be a little more clarity as to what this looks like for all the parties involved. We're still at the forefront of all this, so these kinds of things have to be figured out, but YouTube is at least thinking about it. And so with AI-driven content, one of the biggest complaints about it is how deeply can you connect with an audience if it's simply a computer or an algorithm or AI making this content. And YouTube says all the time that their core focus is audience connection and satisfaction with the actual content they're consuming. And here's how Neil assesses audience connection on YouTube.
It really varies across creator types. I would argue that with short form content, creators on YouTube are able to establish, creators that have leaned into that format. They're not producing, 2-hour, 1-hour conversations, super in-depth conversations like this. They're producing content that's 15 to 30 seconds. But I would argue over some period of time, they can have that depth of engagement with their audience in that format too. Gamers, we have gamers from 10-hour live streams to producing 30-second shorts. And I would argue that varies from creator to creator. Our podcasters on our platform connect with their audience in different ways than vloggers do it. And so my experience is that it's different from creator to creator. And the common thread is that YouTube's the platform that allows you to actually do that in the first place. I mean, we have creators that, have never done anything like a post in between their video uploads. We have creators that lean into that super, super heavily, and that's where their connection and creativity is. And so I would argue to them, and I think this is the way they think about it, is like, it's not just about engagement time on their videos. It's about that interaction that they're having on their posts in between videos. And that's all depth of audience in my mind.
The next question I loved was, do subscribers still matter on YouTube? This is a question I get all the time. And my answer was pretty close to his. So here it is.
I do think that they matter in a whole multitude of ways, right? Obviously, we still have the subscriptions feed. Has their relative importance changed or decreased or increased? I would say that their subscriber counts are still part of the mix in the same way that they've been on YouTube. And for YouTube, it's exactly what you guys said. It's about producing that content that's going to be the most engaging and most relevant for your audience. And that's ultimately what matters.
How I interpret that is, yes, they kind of matter, but nowhere near as much as they used to, because of how algorithms have changed to far more of a merit-based algorithm where it gets pushed based on how many people want it or how well it can do, not based on the size of the audience that you had before posting it. So there's your half answer. Yes, they still matter, but not as much. I love the next question, and it was, would YouTube ever hide view counts across YouTube? They recently hid the dislike button, and a lot of people did not like that. So there was the natural question of, well, how far will this go in terms of determining what we can and can't see on a piece of content? And here was his answer.
We don't have any plans to change that. I mean, we're a video platform where it's about viewing the videos, and that's
what it is.
Kind of core to what we do.
I loved to hear that will never go away. I do think it's important for us to at least see that, and I'm glad it's not going anywhere. They then started to talk about monetization and building a creator-driven business from content with using YouTube to funnel a bigger business. And Colin Samir posed some very good questions here as to why doesn't YouTube give more or better tools for people to build these kind of creator-driven businesses? And the examples that they gave was a newsletter platform, a course hosting platform, and a community platform. The best tools for all of these things are off of YouTube, which then requires the creator to get them off of YouTube, which is great because they own the relationship, but they didn't understand why this wasn't a bigger priority from YouTube. And this was Neil's answer.
We've been investing heavily in enabling shopping opportunities for our creators. And, whether they're physical goods, whether they're services, we really do want to enable it. We want to have tagging in your videos, right? Like I think the latest stat I saw was something like 150 billion times we've served up a piece of content, whether it's short or long form, with a shopping video. We think it's good from a viewer standpoint, and viewers tell us this, to actually have that be as frictionless and seamless as possible, because they don't want to get away from what they were on YouTube in the first place doing, which is watching your content.
This is another one that I enjoyed hearing. It's awesome to hear that they understand who their business is run through, and that creators are still at the forefront of YouTube's mind for the most part, and they want you to win because you're going to keep coming back and winning through YouTube. So I like that approach. I think it's better than a lot of other platforms. I do still think there's a lot of room to improve the tools that are right on YouTube and make it make more economic sense for the creators to actually use them, because there actually are a lot of tools built into YouTube, but they're not widely used because there are just better options out there where the creator can retain more of the money. So we'll see. I'm sure this will be a focus moving forward. If more creators demand it, YouTube will eventually make the tools and make them better right within YouTube. Samir then asked, specific to sponsorships on YouTube, why YouTube doesn't take a percentage of that sponsorship, since YouTube is the platform that gave them the audience to make that sponsorship even happen in the first place. So for example, let's say we made a video sponsored by Flix Content Lab. This video is brought to you by Flix Content Lab. We have spent years building out a suite of AI-driven tools to help you create better content in a fraction of the time. You provide our tools with the brand info and the info about your audience, and we help you come up with unique ideas, unique captions and copy, and even generate the content for you all within one place. And you can even schedule out the content using Flix Scheduler, all from one platform. We have spent so much time, energy, and resources making this product as powerful as possible to provide you everything that you want to achieve all of your goals on social media. And we just want you to try it. So if you use the link down below, you can sign up for a free week trial of all of Flix different tools, including the Content Lab, so that you can make great content in a fraction of the time. Now back to the video. That ad and the revenue generated from it, Samir was wondering why YouTube doesn't try to take a cut of that pie.
YouTube needs to ultimately feel like your home and needs to continue to feel like your home. And so when I hear about those types of opportunities that are off-platform business building opportunities for our creators, I think that's awesome. As long as they feel like their home is still YouTube, their audience is on YouTube. We're enabling this whole, broader ecosystem outside of YouTube, but those creators are still YouTubers. Their audiences, and that's really what I care about. Having said that, should we make some of those things easier? Yeah, we're investing in shopping, first party, being able to link to third party. We have an affiliate program. We want to create all those opportunities, channel memberships. We're investing. We're trying to build those products on platform. But if there's ways that you generate money off platform through a newsletter or what have you, to me, I think that's pretty awesome, because your home is YouTube. That's where you're building your audience. And that's ultimately, I think, great for you, but it's also, frankly, great for YouTube.
So that was great to hear. And I also love that they did mention the businesses that you can build off YouTube with the different tools I was talking about earlier that are off platform, and how YouTube is completely okay with that. So it sounds like it's going to remain that way for the foreseeable future, and they're not going to try to come in and take any of that away from creators. Thumbnail A/B testing is one of the most anticipated features in YouTube history, and it is rolling out to everyone sometime this coming year. And so Colin and Samir asked him about that, and also how they plan to adjust the feature moving forward once it's rolled out.
It's always a balance. It might be different for different creators, but how much burden of that choice do you want?
Ideally, none. It's the thing that keeps us up at night is thumbnails.
Yeah.
So it'd be
But by the way,
no choice in terms of which one it chooses.
Yeah.
Would you want to choose amongst 10 artificially generated?
No.
Right?
No. As long as I felt they were representative of our brand, I would be happy with it.
But would you want to have the last right of refusal on that?
Yeah, I would want to have guardrails.
You'd want to check that box, basically.
I would have guardrails to say, here's what I want in a thumbnail, but then I'm happy for you to choose it based on the user.
But you still want to be in the loop before it posts.
Yeah, keep me in the loop, Neil.
Yeah.
Let me know. Yeah.
Those were the key points in a summary of the major things that are focused on you, the creator, and growing a channel across YouTube. And honestly, I love YouTube. It's my favorite platform. If you haven't made it a focus of yours, I strongly recommend doing so. Take the information that was given from this conversation. And if you want the full podcast, we've linked it down below, but just get started. It is super easy to get overwhelmed. So break through that by simply hitting record on whatever device that you have. This is being shot on a smartphone, and it looks pretty dang good. There's never been less excuses to start on YouTube and more tools at your disposal to help make growing easier. So get after it. If you have any questions or you want more YouTube specific content, let me know in the comment section down below by typing in YouTube, or if you have a specific question in mind, type that out and I will get back to you to help you out as much as I can. And since you're staying on the cutting edge of social media, I really think you'll enjoy this video right here, where I walk through some of the major trends that I see coming to social media this coming year. I break them all down and give you tips for how to best leverage them to get ahead this coming year. So go ahead and click this. I will see you over there, and keep crushing it. Peace.